Looks like we are live. Welcome to BenThere, episode 23. Today, it's not very often that you get to interview people that you grew up idolizing. He's very humble, and so he's gonna probably blow me off when I tell him that here in a minute, which I guess he now knows. But this is gonna be fantastic. It's growing up the way I did, growing up the way he did, growing up the way folks like us did. These third culture kids, TCKs. That's what this show is primarily about. But this is one of those guys that, he was a senior when I was a freshman, just a little guy. But I always looked up to him. But everything he did, I wanted to emulate. He's not even going to know, or hopefully he remembers this. I don't know. He was a basketball guy. He would wear his socks way up to the knees.
Oh yeah,
Scott McCann did that. Ben Vogel had to do that years later. He wore his hat real tall when he was playing baseball and walking around the campus. Ben Vogel had to wear his hat real tall and walk around the campus. Anyway, my point to this guy, I grew up in the Michael Jordan days, the Magic Johnson days, all that stuff, and so many of us did. But the things that matter to us and the people we could, pattern our lifestyles after, and people that we truly admired and viewed as our idols, so to speak, wasn't those guys. We knew about the NBA, we knew what was going on, all that stuff, and that was great. But we had no connection to it being so far away. The people that we had connections to and the idols that we grew up idolizing, people like this, they were always the older classmen. Scott, he was a Boy Scout. I wanted to be in Boy Scouts. He did his sports. I wanted to be sports, man. 25 years later, it's taken me this long to tell you that, Scott, but these are true words, brother. So you're super duper humble, and that's another thing. We'll get into your family and all that stuff in just a minute. But that said, those of you watching, thank you for watching. No matter where you're watching, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. If you're watching on Facebook, welcome to the show. But I can't wait to give this formal introduction. One of my childhood idols right here, Mr. Scott McCann. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
No worries. Well, usually you've seen the show. I mean, usually the way I start this off is have the guests kind of talk about themselves, what they've been up to. You grew up overseas, obviously. I learned a few things about you, with the bio that you sent over. But yeah, just kind of talk about real quickly. Just talk about how your family ended up overseas. We'll get right to it. Your family ended up overseas. Your connection about being a TCK, and then what you've been up to. Maybe I guess the last 25 years or so. I know it's kind of a lot to handle right there, but go ahead, man.
I love it, and I see you're wearing your Boise State hat.
Go Broncos! So, yeah, put it on, please. Yeah, put it on.
No. I'm gonna take a.
Oh,
take a page from your book there, and since I was a hat guy in high school, wore a hat at prom and
how did I
graduation.
Forget that? Yeah, I totally forgot that. That was another thing. You wore hats. I had to wear hats. It was just that whole mantra. Yeah, it hasn't. I obviously haven't kicked it yet, so.
So I thought it would be appropriate for me to bring a couple hats to the since TCK kids.
Yes,
we have to wear a lot of hats regardless of what we're doing.
Even better.
But in the spirit of talking about my mom and dad and coming over to Asia and having a 30-year career in Asia, working for Kodak, I thought it'd be appropriate. But awesome, my mom. And dad were high school sweethearts at Holland Park High School in Dallas, Texas. And my dad was older, and my dad went to SMU, and my mom went to Ole Miss. When my dad graduated, he played football for SMU. We'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit, though. But my dad played football for SMU, and my mom was a home ec major at Ole Miss. And when my dad graduated from college, he got a job in Dallas, and he said, this is not the end all be all where I want to be. And so he decided to go get his master's at Thunderbird in Phoenix, Arizona. And he then got a job with Kodak coming out of Thunderbird. My mom and dad were married the month after he graduated from she graduated from college, and he graduated from Thunderbird. And they moved immediately to Hong Kong. I think it was in 1966, 68 timeframe that they did that. And, it was 1967, I think, around that time. And so they started off a 30-year career and this was the day, back in the days of, the communication era. We didn't have communication, so they needed someone that knew the vision, knew be the face of the company, American company, and he was that. And just had an unbelievable career. And we can talk about where I moved and how I've moved around. But was born in Hong Kong in 1971. Both my sisters were born in Hong Kong as well, Christina and Kimberly, which went to TAS and went to HKS, or not to HKS, but to Malaysia, which is, what is that? ISKL?
Yeah, ISKL.
So we have a very similar path, very similar situation with all our friends. But was born in Hong Kong, lived there for 5 years. Funny story about living in Hong Kong. I learned how to ride a bike in Hong Kong. And what's interesting about riding in Hong Kong is that there's not a whole lot of flat surfaces in Hong Kong. And so I learned how to ride a bike going down a parking ramp. And I didn't know how to stop the bike. And so my granddad didn't know that at the time. So he got me going, and I just kept on going. And I smashed into this barrier, which, I was lucky to hit it. Broke my collarbone. He was a plastic surgeon, so we were in good hands. But I almost went over this barrier wall and went down about 120 feet into the playground, which would have been very dangerous. But my mom wasn't there, my dad wasn't there. It was just me and my granddad, and so we had that experience. But it's living overseas, little things like growing up and learning how to ride your bike. My son and I learned. I taught him how to ride his bike in quarantine this year, so it was really fun to do that. But anyway, just a funny story about Hong Kong and living there. And we lived in Repulse Bay, as you can imagine, know where that is.
Yeah. Oh, I lived there too. That's. I don't know if you even knew this. Before we moved to Taipei, we were actually in Hong Kong for 3 years. That was our first stop, and I lived right in Repulse Bay. We walked to HKIS and everything. So those. Yeah, Burnside Estate, right as you come around that turn from Repulse Bay, all those townhouses, those white townhouses, that was us, man.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, I get it.
Loved Hong Kong, still love Hong Kong, one of my favorite cities to place the world, just because of the international experience. And I was just there a year ago, and I got to visit some good friends of mine from college. He's a Cathay Pacific pilot. And then a good friend, Sunil Datwani, who's living there between there and India, and just a really, really awesome guy that I got to know playing soccer, and just unbelievable soccer player, and just had a great time. Really, really enjoyed Sunil. But yeah, so we grew up overseas. My parents, took us to Hong Kong. We moved from Hong Kong to Malaysia. We lived there for 3 years, and it was in a time frame where we had this huge house. It was massive, and we just had such a great time because I wasn't going to school. I mean, I was staying at home, and maybe it was kindergarten or first grade at the time, And so it was really the thing was massive. Of course, it's not as big as my visions, but we had such a great time. It rained at 1:15 every day, and I love that. It was awesome. Yeah. We had a great time with that. Then, of course, moving from Malaysia to Hong Kong to Taipei, and living there for 12 years until I graduated high school. And I'm sure we'll get into that in more detail. I have some really interesting stories about my next step out of high school, and so let me transition from
let's transition. This is awesome.
Come back to my high school days, right? So got my Tigers hat on, right? And I can't tell you this is mine. I took this from my dad. This is true dad's. So he kept this in his closet the whole time. I couldn't be traveling around the world with this thing all with me, but I took this from my dad and keep it, and we'll continue to hold it forever. So it's fantastic.
I love it.
But graduating from high school in Taiwan, when we'll go into more detail, really, and I've listened to your show and I love it. And I one of the things I really focus in on when you're talking to people is how you decide where to go to college. And it is a really tough thing for third culture kids. Where are they going to school? What do they consider home? Where do they think is good? What do they want to go different? They want to go, sometimes they go back home. Sometimes they want to go something different. Sometimes they go totally opposite place in the world. And I just think that that is a tough decision for most of the people there, and it's not easy. I would say that's.
Well, it's not easy. It's not easy anyway, right? Like either way.
No, it's not easy anyway.
Much less being overseas. Yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. But for me, I always wanted to go to the military academies, and it was very difficult for me to do that because I had to get a congressional appointment, and no congresswoman or man would want to give me his or her congressional appointment when they could give it in state or and get some credit out of it, right? Yeah. So it was me living overseas was very, very difficult to do that, and so I did some research and said, well, where is the largest ROTC program outside of the academies? And I even looked into military schools and VMI and there's a bunch of really good ones, right? And my grandmother McCann, who was just hilarious, right? She told me I could go anywhere but Texas A&M. And she just thought that those boys down there were obnoxious, and you didn't want to do that. And she, of course, had a really good friend of hers who was an old ag and good friends. And so, she I guess this is a joke between them. And I called my grandmother up one day and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about going to A&M. Is that okay?" And of course, she's like, "Of course it is." But she was giving me a hard time about it. So let me change that here.
Transition.
We'll probably be doing this a lot, right? But it's a little different from the one in high school where I knew it was
Yeah, you always had the T in the end. Yeah. I remember that one.
That's right. That's right. But this is the Texas one. This is new logo.
All right.
But I went to A&M and we could talk about the assimilation process and all that stuff as well. And I think it's a really interesting part of it. I tell you, let me just go into it real quickly. So my roommate, my freshman year, I went into the Corps of Cadets, and my freshman roommate was from a small town outside of Houston, Texas, and I don't believe he even had left the state of Texas before he came to A&M. But what's interesting is his girlfriend was Chinese from Taiwan. And she didn't speak a single word of Chinese. She was 100%, English speaker, the whole bit. So I'd be trying to speak to her in Chinese, and she's like, "I don't know what you're talking about," right? It's just this one of like, wait a minute, I just came around the world to come to College Station, and I'm meeting, and so it was kind of this weird reversal of worlds. That we lived in, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So I just went with it, and we had a good time, and it's been fun. We can talk a little bit more about that as well. But I left A&M after doing a victory lap and taking 5 years and enjoying my time there. And then I went into the Marine Corps. Was stationed in stationed up in Quantico, Virginia, and then Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, for a little bit. And then I was ended up in Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii. And I have a really funny story about when I checked into my base at Kaneohe Bay. I checked into the colonel there, commanding officer, says, "McCann," I said, "McCann, you play golf?" I said, "No, sir." He says, "What do you do now?" "We have a staff meeting at 8 a.m. every Monday morning, and I want you there on the golf course." I said, "Yes, sir." It cost me $13 a round to walk, and I've been playing golf ever since, and I've really enjoyed it. And so thank you, Ben, for your taxpayer money and sending me, mom and dad, and sending me to Hawaii to learn how to play golf. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Whatever I can do for country, right? Yeah, there you go. That's all good.
And then from there, I got my master's while I was in Hawaii from Chaminade University, and I don't know if you know Chaminade. But it's known for the biggest sports upset in sports history. And I don't know if you remember, they had a number one ranked basketball team in Virginia that got upset by Chaminade at the Maui Invitational, And Chaminade was not even ranked, and they were obviously the number one ranked team of the nation. And they beat them. Anyway, that's what they're kind of been known for as they move forward. But I went to night school and did that while I was in the Marine Corps. Got my master's in the MBA and business administration, and really enjoyed that. At the same time, was
so. By the way, something else you and I have in common. I also have an MBA, so I got my MBA a couple years back. Yeah. Again, Scott McCann did it. I had to do it. There you go. So, I didn't know that at the time, but I threw that out there. Yeah, go ahead.
All good. I enjoyed it. I think it was good, and we can talk about this. And I think we talked about it. And at least I put it in my little. I really believe you got to be a continuous learner and a continuous educator in not only other people around you but yourself. So you learn as much from other people as they do from you, and then at the same time, don't let anybody tell you that you can't do something. Right? I mean, you can absolutely do something. You just have to get out there and do it, and immerse yourself in the situation. And one of the things that I learned early is that I was just me and my dad. We didn't know how to tile. We were redoing my first house. And we just learned how to, tile the floor and, YouTube videos and, talking to people and we just learned how to do it. And we just had a great time doing it, doing the demo, doing the thin set and everything. And we really, really enjoyed it. And it's just about learning. And that would have paralyzed me, a couple of years before in the aspect of, I don't know how to do it. I've never owned a house, much less, do tile. Right. So I think that's a really important aspect for at least my what I do is I want to continue to learn. I want to continue to learn from others, and I want to also impart those other things that I can give to the people who either working with me, around me, or through me. So
definitely, I love that. By the way, we'll definitely talk about that a little bit later too. So
Yeah. So we left. I'm trying to think of where did I leave off. So I was in the Marine Corps. Got my master's. Yeah. I was looking to get out of the Marine Corps. Really enjoyed my time there. Had a really good time with the Marines. The locker room mentality, the just the ethos, the aspect of it. Just willing to do anything. Right. It was awesome. I decided to get out. I looked at a couple jobs, and you'll like this. I got 3 job offers. Yeah. One was with a company in Houston called Enron, and one was a company in Austin.
I'm laughing already. Yeah.
One was a company in Austin called Motorola, and then one was Dell. And I decided to go with Motorola in Austin because I liked Austin over Houston. But Houston, the Enron job was the best job, hands down.
Yeah.
And most upside, Enron was skyrocketing, and I just decided not to do that because I just didn't like Houston. But at the end of the day, it was really an interesting learning experience. You can't look back, and I'll never regret for anything that I do. But at the same time, I take advantage of the opportunities given to you. And we have been given, Ben, you've been given awesome opportunities. I've been given fantastic opportunities, in life, and it's about you taking advantage of those, not necessarily, missing out on something or saying, hey, they weren't given to you, right? Just take advantage of the ones that were given to you, and it's going to be fantastic. It'll work out. So.
Well said. No, well said. I think you picked the right job too. That Enron thing didn't really work out. So yes.
So I went to go work for Motorola and left there to go work for a startup called NetSolve, who then was acquired by Cisco. Mm-hmm. And I've been working for Cisco ever since. Absolutely love it. I'm in the high tech industry right now. I'm in sales. I support customers. I've got a worldwide responsibility. I've got a team that works for me, and we really enjoy this time. And right now is really exciting for us because what we do is we do work remote. We work. So this is an absolutely perfect opportunity to empower other industries like government, like medical, like lawyers that typically have not done this in the past. And it's really exciting to see where this is going and that empowering what you can do. And I'm excited about kind of the future of where that goes.
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk about that because before we went live, we talked about the fact that you do a lot of international stuff still, and I want to get into that. Kind of brings it full circle as to how you grew up too. So
yeah, by the way,
another hat.
I missed my Marine Corps hat. So
there we go. Sorry, there we go. Yeah. I love it.
That's right. So,
you're killing me, man. You're cracking me up.
I gotta bring it up. I gotta bring it.
Well, I actually wore this one just for you because I figured you were going to come on with a Texas A&M hat, and I figured I had to have my Boise State hat on. So there we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Okay. So you born in Hong Kong, lived in Malaysia, moved to Taipei. You know, you've been back in the States, been in Texas, all that stuff. Where is home right now? I mean, I know you've been in Texas a while now, but do you still feel like that's your connection? That's your home base?
You know, and I've listened to your shows, and you know, we've talked about different people's perspective of it. But for me, home is where the family is. It's not a physical brick and mortar place. It's who you're with, and we can talk about home in a little more detail, but.
Let's do it. This is the time. I want to talk about home, so let's do it.
Yeah. So when you live overseas in an expat community, you don't have your extended family with you at all times, and so you kind of move into a chosen family. And I will tell you, the Kriegers are part of our chosen family. The Ambroses are part of our chosen family. The Davenports are part of our chosen family. And the list goes on, right? I mean, it is, unbelievable the amount of extended family that I have, that I can rely on, that I respect. And by the way, they'll call me out if need to. I mean, talk about Julie Bragg and the Cooks. Absolutely. Right. Julie and Christy, and just
Julie. By the way, Julie must have missed your initial hat, the Kodak hat. I'll write her back. But go ahead. Oh, you got it. Okay, good. I was going to write it back. There it is. There you go.
It's all good.
I love it.
All good. Yeah. So I'm living vicariously through Julie right now because she's in Hong Kong with her daughter and just living. What I would expect, and one of the things that, you're going to ask me is, what do you give recommendations to TCK kids and experiences? And I think Julie is living it in the aspect of she's taking advantage of the opportunities right now. Don't wait, right? I mean, just because it's COVID doesn't mean, you can't get creative and do different things. But I mean, she's just going out and doing, and, seeing the country, seeing the city, seeing the culture as much as she can in that environment. And I'm excited because there'll be a lot of people in a different situation saying, hey, I can't get out. I can't do this. I can't do that. Find excuses every day of the week. And you don't know when you're going to be leaving that environment. You just don't know. And we know this because, I mean, political unrest, your corporate company could bring you back. You could get fired. You can have layoffs. There's so many things that are out of your control. You have no idea what's going to impact you. And I'll tell you a funny story because we went on a vacation to Philippines, and I think we were going to Port Dixon or one of the beach areas, and really enjoyed it. But we were coming back. And I'm going to mess up the political figures and whatever, but it was before Imelda Marcos and the whole unrest of that. But we were driving back, and we saw buses after buses after buses of yellow T-shirts, and it was the gentleman who was running against Marcos and who got assassinated, and his wife. Who carried the
Aquino,
torch for him?
Aquino?
I forget the name, and again I should probably look it up for reference here. But what I remember is that we came back from the vacation. We were on our way to the airport, and all these buses were piling in with these yellow shirts. 15 minutes after we left, after our plane took off, they stormed the airport and shut it down. And that just kind of reminds me of the time that it's just so fragile, right? You don't know what's going on. You don't, living overseas, there's no guarantee it's going to be stable, right? I mean, it's just United States, we take it for granted that we live in one of the stable countries. I know that doesn't feel like that right now, but it really is the balance of power, the change of power is just unbelievable. That's one of the reasons why I joined the Marine Corps and wanted to serve my country, because I wanted to give back to my country what it gave to me. And it's just, I can't put in words what it means to be an American. At the same time, there's times that I was embarrassed to be an American. There's times now I still am embarrassed to be an American.
I got you, man.
At the same time, when you live overseas, it's going to happen. And you have to weather that. Mm-hmm. And you have to say, you know what, we're not perfect. And you hear the stories of the ugly American, right? And I remember growing up, my parents and I know that your parents are the same way. Yep. Don't be that ugly American. Don't be that ugly American. Yep. You got to take the high road. You are a visitor in this country.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
It's one of those things that and my dad hammered this in my head. Listen, if you get in an accident, it's your fault. I don't care what happened. It's your fault. And the reason why it's your fault is because you're there.
Well, I can do you one better. On that note, when in Taipei days, it was actually, you'll appreciate this. It was a Boy Scout thing. My dad and I got up early in the morning at 5:30 in the morning to go do some kind of, I think we were working with compasses or whatever it was.
Yeah.
We were pulled off on the side of the road, like way off to the side, minding our own business, just checking out the compass, doing our thing. Got hit from behind from some truck driver that fell asleep, right? Mm-hmm. We were fine, little whiplash. We're good. It's all good. The man actually died. And, I mean, he fell. It was proven that he fell asleep at the wheel. He hit us. But just like you said, it was our fault, because if we wouldn't have been over there for business, we wouldn't have been there, period. He would still be alive. So same exact thing. You and I grew up in the same kind of house, man. I mean, my dad was the exact same way with my brother and I. No matter what, you are a guest in this country, right? Be proud of who you are. Be proud of who you are. But remember, this is their country. You are a guest. And don't forget that, right? And that's exactly how same kind of thing. And I love that. I love hearing other stories of that similar situation, how we were raised. So yeah, go ahead, man.
No, I just think, at the end of the day, it's that aspect of it is, if you take that approach that, hey, you're a visitor in their country, you take a different perspective, and it's just, you gotta be humble. You gotta understand that, they're allowing you to participate. And by the way, I mean, most countries don't allow you to buy land. Most countries don't allow you to do a lot of things, right? So we're so blessed to live in a country or be a part of a country that has the ability to sell land to foreigners, to allow them to come in and be a part of our culture, because not all the cultures are very as open. And I know you're going to get into this because I love it, and this is one of the reasons why I really love your show is that.
Thank you.
I mean, the aspect of every culture is different, and I got some great stories and funny things, right? So I talked about the chosen family, and I talked about how those people really become a part of your life. Well, if you have a chosen family, what if they're European? What if their drinking age is a much younger drinking age than you have now? There's no drinking age for Europeans mostly. Is it bad? Is it good? It's not good or bad. It's just who they are. I mean, our neighbors drove Mercedes. Well, I didn't think anything of it because they were Germans. I mean, no big deal, right? I was like, yeah, of course they are. That's what they do, right? So I really didn't think anything of it, right? And it was one of those things that it's just different people, different families have different rules. It's not bad. It's just different. And one of the things that stands out to us, and we just kind of take it for granted, is taking your shoes off when you come into the house. That's an Asian thing. That's what they do. But you know what? Not every family does that. But that's something. It's not good or bad. It's just something you do, and you just come to respect that, and you come to know it. You come to like it, right? In times, and there's some people that don't like it, and that's okay too. That's okay. And so, things like that. And I think one of the things that I'd love to ask this question to you.
Yeah, go for it.
Did you have a good friend in high school or middle school that you truly felt was a great friend, but you never went over to their house?
That's a great question. Not in middle school or high school, but it's so funny you bring that up because I was ironically thinking about this the other day. in Hong Kong. When we were in Hong Kong, there was a kid. He was a good friend, nice kid, a little bit different, a little bit off. Nowadays, they would have said he was on the spectrum. It was one of those situations.
Yeah.
But I do remember. That's so funny you said he was of, and I hate admitting this because it's going to sound horrible. I mean, this is 30 years ago. He was of Indian descent, and I just didn't understand the culture. I was 8 years old, 9 years old, and he was one of, technically speaking, he was always nice to me, and that's why I got along with him. But
sure.
he was considered one of those different kids, And I look back now thinking, man, I could have done better, could have done more, could have helped more. But I remember going over to his house, and he had a driver. I mean, his parents were very nice, all that was stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I got in his car, and it was when school was letting out. I got in his car, and I remember as school was letting out, we were driving down the hill. Speaking of Repulse Bay in Hong Kong, because we went to the Repulse Bay HKIS side.
Love it.
Driving down that big hill. But we walked up and down every day. But we were driving down this time. School was just getting out. And I was so terrified that somebody was going to see me in that I pretended to tie my shoes for like 5 minutes so nobody would see me in that car. And I feel horrible about that. Like, his name was Vinny. I don't remember his last name now. I mean, it's been like I said, 30 years, but I have no idea what happened to him. But yeah, not high school and middle school, so to speak. But yeah, definitely that sticks out in my head.
So I had quite a few friends that I considered very good friends, and I never went over to their house, and I didn't. You can't take that as a slight. It's just a different culture. It's a different experience. Sometimes having a sleepover was just very foreign to people. So that's not something you just have to expect that. And you have to embrace it. And you say, you know what, it's okay. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just who they are, right? And so that's why I say that the whole families and chosen families and your relationship are so important, and just to treat them differently and everybody uniquely, because they're coming from a different perspective, and we've come to really appreciate that, and I love it. I mean, that's just really, really important to me, and I really, really enjoyed it.
I love the man. I wish you would have been on this call. You and I talked about this before we went live, and I want to get into this when we talk about acclimation more. But that concept of chosen family, what a perfect term, because that's exactly what it was. I mean, we're going to talk about international school and TAS and all that stuff, but it truly is. It's. I mean, you've got your obviously your family, but these are people that you wanted to be with, and for whatever reason, you were put together from that exact moment in time for a reason too, and I believe that. But it came up in our conversation last night, and like I said, we'll get into this, but. Yeah. Chosen family is a perfect term for exactly what we are, what we, the people that are watching and chiming in right now, it's exactly, I love that term, man. That couldn't have been a better time to tell me that. So I've never heard that before, but I love it. I love the concept of chosen family.
Well, I got to tell you, Ben, I stole it from my little sister, Kimberly, so I can't take full credit, but she's the one that kind of,
Why that surprise? Kim
yeah. Does that surprise you? Not at all.
No, zero. Not in one bit. That guy, no offense, but you couldn't have come up with that. I was going to say it was
absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, listen, I'll kick my coverage already, so yeah, I got you.
No, that's good. And Kim's at my age, and she would have known all the people. We'll have to get her on that Zoom meeting that we kind of do monthly, because she knows everybody. The Aaron Mahans, the Sean McCanns, the Tim Wangers, all that. Yeah, we'll have to get her on there. But let's transition real quick then. Let's go into the international school experience. You obviously started off in Hong Kong. Did you go to HK? Yeah. Here we go.
Here we go. Come on. Transition time.
I love it, man. I get so much crap for wearing hats, but I'm like, I'm sorry, it's who I am.
Hey, I'm a hat guy, man. I'm with you, buddy.
Thank you. I feel more comfortable. I could do it without. I've done a couple of these without the hat, but these always feel better when I have the hat on.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah,
we're in it.
It's my little security blanket, I guess. I don't know, but anyway. But let's talk international school. So when you guys were in Hong Kong, did you go? You were what? You said kindergarten age, first grade?
I was too young. I was 1 to 5. Okay. So I didn't go to school there.
Okay, so do you remember then your Malaysia days? Do you recall
Malaysia,
those school days?
I was in kindergarten and first grade in Malaysia.
Okay, do you remember the school? What school were you at?
Yeah, HKS. I went to HKS.
Malaysia? Oh, yeah, you did go to HKS.
I did. Yeah, for kindergarten and first grade.
ISKO.
I'm sorry, ISKO.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I keep mixing it up.
That's all right. No,
yeah,
that's all right. Okay, so then you guys ended up at TAS in Taiwan. So let's talk about that international school experience, because that's really all you knew. I was in the States. I mean, I'm born in Idaho. We moved to Chicago. I did kindergarten, first and second grade, and then all I remember was third grade through 12th grade overseas. But that's really literally all you knew. Talk
Correct.
about that. Talk about your international school experience and the positives and negatives. I mean, I know obviously the sports thing, we could do a whole show just about. I asked this and all that stuff. Yeah, and we'll get into that if you go with it if you want to, but just talk about the positives and negatives of growing up internationally.
All right, so let's talk about it. So from a pros, I've got travel, I've got exposure to world views, world cultures. Obviously, we had a great education. I take that for granted because I'll tell you, not everybody has a great education. I think we got lucky, and we had an unbelievable school and community. I do know that there's a lot of expat and a lot of embassy schools that are just not as good, right? They're just trying to put it together to make it work. But we're very lucky. So I feel very humbled to be a part of the TS community. The sense of expat, I mean, that to me, it was just absolutely a positive. I think I talked about that. Everybody's going through it together, right?
Yep.
And the one thing that I have down here is kind of something I like to do, and I tell everybody: if you have the opportunity to live history, go do it. I wanted to move to South Africa during apartheid because I thought that that's not going to last forever, and I felt like if you can be a part of that, be in it during that history, you're living history. You're not reading about it. You're a part of it, and to me, that's really a fun part. I loved being in Taiwan during Tiananmen Square, right? Just to understand and to know what was going on. You were living history. We're talking about it. We're being a part of that. When the government, the U.S. government. Not defunded, but de-recognized Taiwan and recognized China. That was living history.
Yeah.
And you're living a part of that. And to me, anytime you have the opportunity to do that, I know that sometimes it sounds crazy and dangerous, but it's exciting.
Not to me.
Right?
Yeah, not to
and
me. I love it.
Fun.
Yeah.
So be a part of that. If you have an opportunity to go live history. And I think that to me is what you can do. So those are pros, and that's really not on the education side, but the international, growing up overseas. The cons, I think making and choosing friends and family as they leave, that's a tough one. At the same time, I made it a little bit of a game in the aspect of who could meet the new guy or the new girl first and bring them into the crowd. Because I wanted to be in my crowd before they were in someone else's crowd, right? At the same time, that's just my personality, and that's kind of what we did, and I really enjoyed that. Unfortunately, that was a bad thing for Eric and Brian Pritchett because they kind of enjoyed hanging out with them too much, and they got influenced in the wrong way, probably.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, obviously, people come and go, right? So people coming and going, it's a tough one. But I think we're very much we have a lot of friends, but you don't go deep with a lot of people. And I've heard that with some of your some of your interviews in the past. And I couldn't agree more. I think that's definitely something that we have a lot of friends, and we consider. My wife says we consider good friends when they're not really good friends. They're friends that we can catch up with on a drop of a beat and have no problem. But there's not something they know the deep dark secrets and we're sharing, personal issues with on a daily basis, which some people believe is more deeper. But it's just a different mentality. So that's one. I'd say.
Well, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Let me stop you right there because I do have this is that one I told you before we went live. I was going to kind of ask you. It wasn't on the list and all that stuff, but we got into that conversation last night. And I want to see your take on this. I mean, the group of us, there's like 8 or 9 folks on that Zoom call, and we could easily have more, and we probably will. Your sister, Kim, involved as well. We kind of, again, I loved how you opened this up because you said this isn't about right or wrong. It's not about this is the right way to live. That's got nothing to do with it. It just was our life, right? That's what we were given, and we were blessed to be given. I look at it exactly how you do. Ironically, the same people that I was on that Zoom call with last night, people that the TAS folks that I graduated with almost 30 years ago. We're talking 20, I think I've been gone 27 years. I can't do the math off the top of my head. but yeah, we can pick up. You're right. We're not super close. We don't talk every day. Tim Wenger and I, even though he was the best man at my wedding, I was the best man at his wedding. We don't talk every day, but when we do talk, it feels like we talk every day, right? And there's people I've moved around a lot. You've moved around a lot. I mean, you've definitely done some things. You've been in the Marine Corps. You've went to Texas A&M, all that stuff. I'm sure along the way you've met really good friends and have had really good friends in your life. We share that bond because I have too. I mean, I've definitely got great friends from college days, great friends in Idaho, great friends down here. And yet, why is it that I don't know if you do this, maybe you don't, but we all kind of collectively talked about this last night, that even though we're in this new environment and we have these great friends and great people, we still talk deeper, and the friendship and the connection and all that still to this day, even though we don't live around each other, we have in many, many years, we find it easier to go right back to those relationships and converse deeper, and those friendships are still stronger. I mean, in your experience, do you still or feel the same similarity? I mean, is that something that you guys have connected with too, or? Okay.
No, absolutely. I think.
Why do you think that is? Why? I mean, is it simply just as simple as the fact that we grew up that way, or is it more than that?
I don't. It's hard to explain, and it's probably someone more educated than me can clearly articulate it. But for me, we have a common struggle or common background that we've gone through. Steve and McKeel, Davenport and McKeel, this one, are some of my good friends, and Steve's dad passed away, which gave them opportunity for us to get together and talk, and it was one of those things that couldn't miss a beat, and actually we took our friendship even further, going even more deep with each other as to kind of how we can help each other, how can we pray for each other, and what can we do to help our families. And it was I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's a bond though that it's hard to maintain.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's simply because of how we grew up, or is that something that would happen either way, you think? If you'd have met them stateside, do you think you'd still be as tight as you are, being that we met overseas, or you met them overseas?
I have a hard time believing that it would be the case. I really do, because there's just so many people, and it's just different. Maybe if I went to a small high school and it was, I don't know. It felt like a smaller community. We lived in a big town, big city. Yeah. It was a great time. Really enjoyed that. But at the same time, really small community within that big town. So that's unique, very unique.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I had to ask because that came up last night, and we were just, the same old thing. I mean, the majority of the conversation is just picking up where we left off, learning about what everybody's up to, how you're getting through the COVID thing, what your kids are up to in life in general. And then it just took a deep turn, but it was, it was a good deep turn. It was just one of those things that why is it that of all the people, the 7 billion people, 8 billion people on the planet, why is it that there's still the same 9 that we keep coming back to? Is it a collective thing right? And it's just, we didn't know if it was just us, or that's why I want to reach out to you and ask you that question today, because I do think it's in our DNA as TCKs. I think while we do have those friendships, that'll be lifelong friendships. Don't get me wrong, through who you had in the Marine Corps, who you had in college days, and I had playing baseball in North Carolina and moving around and from town to town. I definitely have people that I will be in touch with. They're great friends of mine, and they're brothers and all that stuff. But there's that connection that we have as TCK kids, as people that grew up outside the country. It, for whatever, maybe it makes us a little different, whatever, but we still have that connection. It's always, I don't know if it's a safety net that we all come back to, but it's such a comforting thing, and something that I truly feel blessed that we have, because for the longest time, I thought I was different. I thought when I came back to the States, I was the only one that had some issues and going through some stuff and all that stuff. Yeah. This show has brought it out even more so, and it was never the intention. The show was just supposed to be, a good time, but it has taught me so much about the culture of who we are as TCKs, the DNA, what we all have gone through. Whether you were at Texas A&M, whether I was at Boise State, it didn't matter. We were all kind of going through the same thing, and we're going to get into that deeper. I've kind of spoiled the gun a little bit, but we just had such a deep conversation, and that's why the chosen family thing. I am totally going back to that group tonight. I'm going to text them all and say chosen family. That's exact, because we were trying to figure out why, and then that you answered it before I even asked you the question.
Chosen family. I think that's what it is that if you've identified that as your chosen family, not only them but their family members right?
Yeah.
That is, so critical, right?
Yeah. And you don't, I mean, the easy out is that you don't have to explain yourself. And we'll talk about that as part of the acclimation process.
I can go over to the Davenport's house and literally I've done that, just 3 years ago and had dinner with Mrs. Davenport by herself and not even without Steve or Tony or whatever. And I had an absolute blast, right?
I love it.
So, that's absolutely can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and totally, I agree with that. So, let's talk about the travel bug then, because obviously you still travel. I mean, nobody's really traveling right now, but the travel bug. Oh, here we go.
Oh, here we go.
Oh yeah.
You know my dad. If you know my dad, he called everybody captain, right? And so this is the travel bug. He got this in Greece. And we have so many fond memories of being in Greece and having fun trips with that. But this is my dad's hat from Greece, and he wore it, forever. And he called everybody captain. So I'm wearing this in memory of him from our trip to Greece.
That I remember that hat. I remember your pops, and yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
I wasn't ready for that one. That's the one that just got me. So obviously, I was all cool with the baseball hats until you went there.
Yeah. No, I'm switching it up on you, man.
All right, good. So travel bug, you still have it then, obviously, yeah?
Absolutely. Listen, I love to travel. I am I travel as much as I possibly can. I travel with work. The day and age of expats are slimming, just because the communication era is upon us, and we can communicate with anybody around the world with a blink of an eye. And so you don't need headquarters country executives in international locations to carry the banner. There are highly educated locals that can do just as much, along with being plugged into headquarters based off of what the policies are and what's going on. So it's just the days of American imperialism when it comes to commerce are over, and it's very much a global society that we're living in, and it's exciting. What changes with that is you do a lot remote, but with that remote, until you get on site and you're able to build that one-on-one relationship, those remote sessions are a little bit hollow, right? And so as much as you can get on site and be with someone, then you can perpetuate it remotely. And it's a fun time to be a part of that. It's just different, right? So we're kind of managing that process.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally different. But yeah, I agree with that. And same thing. I still have it too. I just can't go anywhere right now. But
yeah, I know. I know that you're going to ask me where am I going to go next, right? What's on the list? And I already have an Excel for every year. My son and daughter, traveling age, where we're going to go, and of course, COVID just messed that all up, right? So I'm messed up. But and as you put on the kind of the little bio. My family and my wife is the chief operating officer on this one. We're in charge of finding the best sand in the world. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that, but yeah, that's all.
And so that's our job. We're going to go find the best sand in the world, and we're still. It will never be done, but we're gonna find it, right? And so Australia, the Maldives, the Seychelles are some of the places that we're going to go for sure. I'm going to take my kids back to, I've been to Africa. I'm going to take my kids back to Africa. I want to do a safari there for sure. I want to go to running with the horses in Italy, in Siena. I think that would just be, and again,
my wife and I actually went there for a honeymoon. We didn't see the horses, but we did go to Siena, and we were on the where they actually run.
Yeah.
We just different time of year, but yeah, we learned the whole history and all that. So that's kind of cool. Amazing. So
I definitely want. I mean, I want to go. I want to go when they're doing it. I'm excited about that. I want to go with the running with the bulls in Spain. So just things like that, where you're living history, you're being a part of. The culture that is enjoying it. I want to go to El Carnaval in Brazil, right? So things like that. But I also want to do it when my kids are old enough so they can enjoy it with us. Yeah. So it's just that balance of when's the right time and where do we want to go. And so I'm really excited. But definitely gonna hit Australia. Go to Great Barrier Reef.
You've been invited. Look at Peter right there. Yeah.
My man, Peter. Absolutely. So definitely going down to Australia. We'll be looking up Peter for sure. I hung out with David Hexter in Dallas, who's a airline pilot. Who's a great family, and really enjoy hanging out with them. So,
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. It's a crazy time in general for anybody who loves to travel, but especially us TCK folks. That I think you and I talked about this before we went live, but this is the first time in my life I have not had a plan or a ticket or something marked in the calendar that says I'm leaving on this day. I've got a destination I'm going to.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. And so it's a wild time, but yeah, totally travel bug. Yeah, this way too. I hear you loud and clear. So, sure. Wow, you're blowing up here, buddy. Let me show you this video. Oh, there you go. Peter's going to be waiting for you.
I love it. Yeah.
And Richard Ambrose. Well, let me jump in here. This one. Getting the travel issues. Totally.
Richard, yeah. I love Richard. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And then you don't know this lady here. She and I actually we were same age as your Kim, your sister, but we were HKIS. But her family is very close with my family. But yeah, she's the same thing. She's saying that she's a TCK, traveling the whole traveling issue right now. I'm assuming that's what she needs right now. But yeah, so. Well, what kind of advice? I mean, obviously, COVID or no COVID, in the world in that we live in, it's still happening where people are moving overseas. You've traveled a lot. People are moving overseas. Yep. Families are moving overseas. What kind of advice would you give to those current or future TCK families?
Yeah, I wrote down some of these things, and I think getting active in your community as quickly as possible. Julie Cook is a great example. Our girl Julie Bragg is a great example of that in the aspect of getting to Hong Kong and just plugging out on day one, just going after it. I love that. Just a fantastic. And I think because so many people are hesitant. They're like, I don't know. Let me see a season. Well, you might not be here in a season. No. It's just the way life works, right? Yeah. Not good or bad. I mean, just that's the way it is. I mean, your embassy might be pulled away, but just embrace it, go with it. But yeah, I'd say that don't wait. Go for it right now. The time is now to do those things, and then look for opportunities for that chosen family. That doesn't happen overnight, so that's gotta come over time. But it does happen, and I think if you are you don't have grandparents that will be there all the time, but if you can find that family who is quote unquote extended family that you can drop the kids off and then go to a date night or whatever, that is so important to be a part of. Yeah. So
what was your experience wise? Do you think it was oh sorry. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
No. Cheryl Waterman.
Oh, there you go.
One of my favorite teachers in the world just joined. She's a second grade teacher out of Bethany. And I went to Bethany up until sixth grade, then I transferred over to TAS. Okay. But Mrs. Waterman is one of the most patient teachers on the planet because I am not the best student, and I have well-known ADD. I have to be moving around and doing a lot of stuff, and I could not. I just love water, and I have not talked to Mrs. Waterman in a long time. So really appreciate her, and thanks for jumping on there.
Yeah. Hi, Mrs. Waterman. Welcome to the show. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I was going to say, you have a hard time sitting still, Scott McCann? What?
I know. It's not hard to believe. I know.
Nothing's changed, brother. Nothing's changed.
I know. It's all good. It's funny. What's not good in high school is great outside of college, outside of school, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely a bonus.
Yeah. Just wrote you back. Take a look.
I love it.
Mrs. Waterman's still here. There you go.
Fantastic. She's the best.
Yeah. Well, on that, real quickly, because and it's nothing against Mrs. Waterman here. I just want to move along a little bit, but I do think, and maybe this is just my interpretation, but maybe you're the same. I did find, especially TAS, though everybody is coming from somewhere. You mentioned that earlier. Everybody is going to be, the new kid at some point, no matter where they're coming from, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I do feel, and maybe I think you experienced the same thing, but everybody seemed to be so, arms wide open. Let's go. Welcome. You talked about, how you wanted to beat everybody else to the new kid, so to speak. But I think that was a common theme. It was almost like your first year, you were like walking on clouds. You couldn't do wrong. Right. And I think people are so open to, that acceptance of somebody from anywhere. You know, it's just about, because now you're all in the same, you're all that chosen family. You're all in that together. Everybody at some point, whether it's kindergarten or senior year of high school, everyone experiences being that new kid somehow, some way in Asia or wherever they were going. Right. So I think that's totally true. I mean, and just in terms of advice, I think that's, if I love that you said, you know, allow yourself to be in the moment, right? And really reach out and branch out, because I totally agree with that. But I do think on the flip side of that, I think people are super excited and welcoming towards those that are moving in. So,
Yep.
Because I've seen it both ways. I went back, I think you knew this. I went back to Shanghai. I was an administrator at one of the international schools over there for a couple of years. And that was my job. My job was, you know, welcoming families in and kind of being a liaison between the school and those families that were working and moving in. And it was the same kind of thing. Everyone was so timid at first, but if my whole line was, you know, just drop the guard and just allow it to happen, because you're going to be okay. But it's that, you know, it's that, and rightfully so. It is a scary thing. It's not something, you know, that happens to just everybody in their life, you know. But if you allow yourself to kind of drop that guard and accept the situation, you're going to be okay. Because I do believe that people, especially people overseas, people in general, but people overseas are super open arms, accepting and wanting you to join right in. So my take anyway.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think you're spot on. Now it might have changed, but you know, that's what my experience.
Totally. So you got a couple another shout out real quick. Looks like Mike and Nancy.
Miss Metzger is she and I. So it's one of my great teachers from Bethany as well, and just happened to have a really fantastic teachers, small school, small classes, and I needed a lot of, and she will tell you like Miss Waterman, I need a lot of attention. Not because probably because I needed it, I wanted it, but because I actually needed it. And just an absolute person who's made a major impact, not only on me, but my family, my mom, my sisters, and a person. What's amazing, your high school teachers in the United States, I don't feel like they keep up with you in your family like the international teachers do. And we're just so blessed to have unbelievable people that have been able to be a part of my life, and you know, my family's life, my sisters. It's just really great influences, and I just don't feel like that's the same in the United States right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, I was a teacher here, so I totally understand that. Yeah, I went into that. Yeah, I went into that profession. But I hate to break it to you, man. You are not the first Bethany alum to be on the show.
I know. I was listening. I was listening to your
Seth Luton beat you there. Yeah.
I love it. No, it's fantastic.
Yeah, Kim actually knows him, I'm assuming, because they would have been the same age, same class, all that stuff. So yeah. So I just realized that. Sorry to break it to you, buddy. You're not the first.
It's okay. That's fine. You know what? All good. All right.
Good stuff. Well, let's transition even again. I do want to get back to that acclimation question, because that, to me, I've said this. Oh, here we go. Sorry. There we go.
Acclimating, all right? All right, come on, Ben. Come on. Are you acclimating with me now?
I'm trying to see.
Come on now.
Do I have another hat? I got nothing. Hold on.
No, it's all good. All right. Okay. All right.
You'll appreciate this. Hold on. There we go.
There we go. Now we're talking. That's going to be tough.
I can't hear you, but we'll have to go this for real. There we go.
It's okay.
Can you hear me?
There we go. I like it.
All right. This is just for you, buddy. I actually got this hat. Go ahead.
We won't make this a long transition.
No, your hat's better than mine anyway. But I will say this. I got this. You'll love this. I got this hat in Singapore.
Oh, love it.
Believe it or not. There's a store. My brother who's watching, he'll appreciate this too. It's called Singapore Cowboy.
I love it.
It's a store in Singapore that only sells American cowboy stuff.
That's great.
And they play nothing. They play nothing but cowboy songs and country music there. It's awesome.
All right.
So yeah, I can barely hear you, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and take this off.
Let's do it.
But you keep yours on. All right, cool.
All right, we'll do it.
Hold on.
I love it.
That was for you though. There we go.
All right, I appreciate that, Ben.
Yeah, no.
So acclimating back into
acclimation. Yeah, thank you. I'm so this is awesome, by the way. I love these spontaneous wardrobe changes. Yeah.
I'll tell you that I told you about my first roommate, and that was kind of an interesting topic.
Wait, before before you go any further, because I want to give a little preview on this, because your situation's a little different. I mean, my brother and I, born in Idaho, we're Idaho boys. Then my dad gets his corporate job with McDonald's, very similar to your dad with Kodak. We moved to Chicago. We were in Chicago 6 years, but we were still stateside. I still remember going to kindergarten, first and second grade in the States. And then we transitioned over to Asia, and that's where we ended up, and that's home, right? So, but you never, I mean, you look the part just like I do. You look the part, you act the part, everything's the part. You didn't grow up in the States, right? I mean, there was nothing. You had all your memories of your education was overseas. So when you came back, you were like me, I'm assuming you would spend some summers, and I know you guys did the camp thing and all that when you came back, in the summertime. Mm-hmm. But aside from that, I mean, you never lived in the U.S. prior to moving back for college, right?
Yeah, I never did.
Yeah, so talk about that transition. Not only that, but I've been to Texas A&M. I was terrified, man. Gig 'em, go Aggies, right? Go Aggies. Right. But because I don't even know if I ever told you this. I was thinking about going there too, because again, Scott McCann did it. Okay. I had to do it, right? Go. So it didn't work out, unfortunately, because I wanted to play baseball. And what I remember, I had an interview with their head coach, and I was coming from TS, and I drove up to the campus, and their baseball stadium was the size of like a AAA minor league stadium. Yeah. And I was just like, nope, can't do it. I mean, I called him respectfully, but I ended up going to I didn't go there, but I did do a try to Blinn College. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know Blinn well, yeah.
Yeah, so I actually went down there and played, and I remember I'd never been to Texas before. Finished my tryout. It went well. Everything was good.
Good.
I felt good about it. He offered me, a walk-on spot because I was, still young. I was only a junior at the time. Right. I was in between junior and senior year. But he's like, keep in touch, blah, blah, blah. I just remember sitting in his office just dripping in sweat. I hadn't had that humidity in forever. And I just remember sitting there like this, just like, I don't even know what you're saying, coach, but whatever. Yeah, it's all good. It's just dripping sweat. But
it's brutal.
Yeah, it's brutal. And so, but anyway, my point to this is I want you to talk about your acclimation stateside, because I had the luxury of having at least a couple years as a kid before I moved overseas and then coming back. You never even had that. And it was an eye opener for me, because I actually thought you did just like I did and then moved overseas, but you never did. So talk about your acclimation, never being in the States, not only going to college in the States, but one of the, biggest schools in the States, plus the whole ROTC thing, man. That had to be such a transition from what you knew. So go ahead.
Yeah, it was interesting. I'll tell you, there's a lot of funny stories and a lot of fun times. But yeah, I mean, so let's if I could talk about two things. One, how I got to A&M. I talked about my grandmother and her aspect of it, but really it's tough to get into a state school when you're living overseas. And my dad was the American Chamber of Commerce president at the time, and the president of the Texas A&M University came and talked to the American Chamber of Commerce in Taipei my senior year, actually early in the year. And my dad was there. He's like, "Hey, I've got my son and a couple other boys that are looking into going colleges. Do you mind if you talk to them?" And we went to have to lunch one day, and I actually talked to the president of the university. His name is Dr. Mobley. He just actually passed away a couple years ago. Great gentleman, and what an opportunity. I mean, again, it gets back to taking advantage of the opportunities given to you. Yeah. I could have probably gone to 20 other universities and had a successful time and had a great time, but I took advantage of an opportunity given to me, not because it's any better than anyone else, but it's the one that was given to me. And I had that opportunity, and having that, it made it easier for me to get in. And I felt like, this is the place to me. I know Tony Dempour went to A&M, was in the Corps of Cadets before me. So that was a little bit of easier transition as well, knowing that he was going to be there. At the same time, I wasn't good friends with Tony. I knew of him. I was great friends with his brother. Yeah. At the same time, it was one of those things that when you're moving there, what do you do? So I get there, and kind of as you articulated, we came back every summer. We stayed with our grandparents for 3 months, and the the ability to stay with your grandparents is just, and then you did that as well, right?
Yeah,
going
absolutely.
out and listening,
Absolutely.
which is, I mean, you learn so much from them. You gain so much knowledge from them. It's so much wisdom. And I don't think you get that just by going to their house for a weekend or going to dinner. You're immersed in their lives. They really impart a lot of things to you. And so to me, that was a special time that you can never get back. That was just awesome opportunities that I've learned a lot from my grandparents during that time frame. But I stayed with my grandparents during the summertime and did different things around Dallas. And then I went to Kaneohe, which is a Christian sports camp in Missouri. And we did that every summer. And I gained a lot of good friends. And one of my best man in my wedding was from Kaneohe. And so, there's a lot of community in there. And that's a national draw, right? So it's in Missouri, but it's from St. Louis and Chicago, Dallas, wherever. So they have it a national brand that they're doing, and something that I have. In addition to that, we had when I grew up, we had a Christian faith and the Baptist mission, and really that was a big community of mine in Taipei, and even to this day, and for me, the acclimation process was a little bit easier. I had, obviously everybody's got their ups and downs and they have that through the process, but I was able to go in and have an acclimation process, associate myself with some people that I didn't know, and I was able to associate with pretty quickly and really enjoyed that. Funny story, and I just want to share this one with you, is the Baptist Student Union gives free food on Wednesdays for their Bible study. So of course, if it's free, I'm there, right? And so I'm there having a free dinner and whatever. And they assign me to go in a Bible study, and I like, great, I'm on it. I love it. Let's look forward to it. I'm in it, and there's boys and girls a part of it, and I see them. They're all wearing nice gold watches, and I'm like, man, are these all rich kids, or what's going on? I mean, I'm not. I mean, there's a club here I'm not a part of, right? I need to understand what's going on. And they go, and so I asked them, I said, what's the deal with the gold watches? And they go, well, Scott, we were given these watches for bowling a perfect game. We're all on the A&M bowling team. And so I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you serious? They're like, yeah. And so that we ended up, going bowling on the weekend, and I got to know these people. Really had a great time with them. And there was the biggest argument is which bowling alley would we go to, because it's about how you grease the alleys. And they major debate. I can't go. I'm not playing there. It's like drinking Marlboro. Can't have it, right? It's not going to do it. But I had a great time. Really enjoyed it. Got some really good friends there. So my acclimation process was a little easier because of that community that I had. From Kaneohe and then from the Christian community that I'm a part of, and I really enjoyed it. But being in the Corps, being in a organization that is not socioeconomic, right? There were people who was the first time anyone in their family had been to college. Mm-hmm. There were people that just barely could pay their bills to get their son to college. And by the way, a couple of them didn't make it, right? Their families couldn't pay for them to make it through. So it was very much a different experience and a unique experience. And they tell you, okay, these guys are going to be your best friends for the rest of your life. And they are, but they're not, in a different way than your TCK friends. Because they really don't. We went through a different experience than what they did, what we experienced at A&M.
Which is a perfect transition then, because I did want to talk about you and your years in the Corps and the whole patriotism thing, because as an expat kid, I mean, I'm glad you brought it up earlier. You and I shared obviously we had different dads, but we had very similar dads. The concept of, look, you are an American in someone else's country, you will respect their traditions, all that stuff. Patriotism growing up as an expat kid, was that something that was instilled in your house? I mean, how did you go from being a TCK kid to, I want to be, go to Texas A&M and end up in the Marine Corps?
All right.
That's not.
Here.
One. Okay.
Let's get that.
Let's put that back on. because I do want to know that. I mean, and I guess on the same question, I mean, do you think growing up, and this is something I get asked all the time, do you think growing up outside the U.S. made you more patriotic?
Yeah. For me, it was. And I shared with you a little bit about the time that I'm very proud to be an American, but also I was very embarrassed at times to be an American. And but at the same time, I'm so blessed to have the freedoms that we have. And I'll just give you an interesting story. My dad and I went to Beijing. And I being an A&M guy, I bring my A&M flag around the world, and I take pictures of it, in Greece or wherever, right? Yeah. And just to have a picture of kind of the A&M brand around the world. And we were in Tiananmen Square, and I break out the A&M flag. My dad's about to take a picture of it, and I break it out and take the picture. And three guys. Basically, and Tiananmen Square is a big square, right? So three guys come running from each corner to where I'm at, and they tell me, "You have to take that down immediately." And I'm surprised they didn't confiscate my camera at the time. But they knew it was not a combative situation. I was just a tourist, and so on and so forth. Literally, we took it down and so forth, and we were walking around. Literally. 20 minutes later, Falun Gong showed up, and they had, banners, and, those guys can show up in the middle of nowhere. And so that's what the Chinese government was very afraid of. And they took all these people, threw them onto buses and carted them off, and we never saw them again. Right. Yeah. So, for me, the aspect of that we can have a freedom of speech, we can disagree with people in a calm manner, in a respectful manner, to me is absolutely worth saving and worth defending. And to me, is very important. My roommate here looks like he's just blowing up from Hawaii. Unbelievable guy, and I really enjoy him. Yeah, great guy.
Very cool. Was it ever pushed in your household? I mean, I can't remember. Was your dad in the Corps too, or no? Was there a connection?
No, my dad worked for Eastman Kodak, but he was a Army National Guard for a small period of time. I think you just get a paycheck aspect of it, but nothing that was really pushed from my dad aspect. So I grew up. I don't know if you remember Mr. Bumpus. He's Colonel Bumpus, Derek Bumpus and Jeff Bumpus's father, who they live very close to us in Yamingshan and 105 lane. And I would ride my bike to them and hang out with them and have really good friendships with them. Colonel Bumpus was a major influencer on me. Mr. Funk, who was a Marine, was a major influence on me. Mr. Ambrose, who was a Marine, was a major influence on me. And I saw these, extremely professional, extremely impressive fathers and businessmen that had gone that route. And I said, "This is a blueprint that I would love to, be a part of." And I see Jeff just joined, but Colonel Bumpus, Mr. Bumpus for me was really an absolute mentor and a great gentleman. I really looked up to.
No,
that was the aspect. And of course, you travel to different countries. You go to Singapore, you go to Malaysia, you go to you go to the embassies. The embassies have the Marine Corps guards there. When we were in Malaysia, some of our best friends were the deputy commander or deputy officer there. And we just had a great experience with the embassies and the people there. And that was just an experience that I wanted to have for myself.
I love it, and I appreciate it, and I thank you for what you did, man. That's the one thing I can't say I followed in your footsteps. I didn't make it that route. I tried, but there was that little asthma thing I had an issue with. So
all good.
Yeah,
no,
everything else. It was Scott McCann did this. I had to do this too.
Hey, by the way, I see Dan Cooper joined. I just want to say something about Dan. So when I joined the track team, I only ran track 1 year. Dan's 4x800 relay. He was on he has a school record at the time. I think that might have been broken by now. Probably not, knowing Dan. But it was fun to see his daughter at school and doing track, and just carried on the tradition, and just that's a fun. I really enjoyed my time at track because it was a crossover sport for me. I played softball typically, and I know that you played softball.
Yeah.
I played on ICRT for a little bit, the ICRT Stars, right? And then I went over to play with the Slobs. With Dan Grendel's dad, and and we had such a great time. And I'm so thankful for Dan, and I keep in touch with Dan. I love Dan. And the guy still plays softball better than anybody I know, man.
Did you hear about our story? Like, with Dan actually is in Boise now, and when I first moved to Boise, he and I just by fluke got put on the same softball team. I signed up to play softball.
That's unbelievable.
And I just remember playing like, I know that guy. I know him because I was closer to his younger brother Rob. He was closer to my age because I think Dan's your age, isn't he?
Yeah,
maybe a year older. Yeah, okay.
He's a year older.
So, but I knew him because again, I would go and watch you guys play. I would do all that as a younger guy, and especially at the old school. That dates both of us. But
absolutely, hey.
But I remember playing and watching him. But then when I got to Boise, I was like, gosh, I know that guy. I know him, and it took me a while. I was trying to be a little shy, and standoffish. I didn't want to go up to him because you automatically go right back into that. I'm in 8th grade. He's a senior in high school mode, right? You didn't want anything to do. Don't ask me a question. Just
no. Hey, Dan's intimidating too, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So is Rob. Let's be honest.
But
and yet,
he's a teddy bear. He's a teddy
bear. Yes. Because if you get to know them, nicest guy, both of them, he and Rob both. Because Rob and I played 2 years at least varsity wise, and Rob was the same way. I was terrified of him at first, and then he's just the big old, perfect older brother kind of guy. Whatever you needed, he'd get you. It was all that. Great guys. But you're right. From an initial perspective, terrifying. And it didn't change. I'm in college. I think I had to have been. I was probably like 20, 21 at the time, and he was probably pushing 30. But I was still just that. It's just you go right back into that mode. I'm like, I know him. Turns out, it was Rob Grindel, and he and I just by fluke ended up, or Dan Grindel, excuse me. And we ended up on the same softball team in just this community like city league team in Boise. It was great though.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, small world. Let me see who. I'm sure. Do you know this individual?
Oh yeah, Steve, good buddy of mine. He went to A&M and was in the Corps with me. Was one of my fish buddies. He unbelievable, friend and just, the experiences that we've had, went in the Marine Corps, now we're in business together in different areas, but in sales. So we have a lot in common. And that's one of those things that you just live and you grow up, and it's an unbelievable infrastructure of people that you work through.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to turn it just a bit, and I want to talk about your parents, and I hope, I want this to be as respectful as I can because I knew both of them. Let's put that hat back.
I better take that off.
Oh, there you go. Okay. You don't have a hat for that. Yeah. All right. No, your mom, I just remember her just super sweet, salt of the earth, and she'd do anything for anybody. And your dad was the same way. Your dad was a little bit intimidating, but you got over that because the same kind of thing. He became a teddy bear as soon as you actually got to know him, right? But what kind of, as you grew up, what kind of influence did they have on you and who you became and the man you became today? If you could talk about your parents for a while, I want to give them a little bit of tribute because, again, you and I talked about this before we came on. We would not be doing this conversation without your parents and my parents, right? It's just the luck of the draw. So
absolutely. So my parents obviously are mean the world to me, and they both passed, and I've learned after they've passed even more how much of an influence they were on so many of the people growing up in high school, and even outside of high school. They did things that just kept in touch with, my Bethany teachers, my TAS teachers, not even telling, me and making sure, because, at the time I could care less, right? But they cared, and they were so important, and they didn't care who you are. They didn't care if you were the best basketball player, if you were the best student, it didn't matter. My mom was an absolute servant at heart. I was just going through the yearbooks today, and there was pictures of her serving cake to, track athletes. She probably didn't know half of them, but, she wanted to get to know them and be a part of their life and what they were doing. And she'd give her, the shirt off her back. And then, of course, my dad, he played football for SMU, and one of the biggest guys in high school at his high school. And that's one I didn't get to the cons, but one of the cons I felt that I had living overseas, and there's very few, was that I never got to play American football. Yeah. I really would have liked to give that a whirl. I think that would have been a fun opportunity.
It's never too late, man. Your knees are fine. You're good.
Hey, trust me, the minute you graduate from high school, it's too late unless you're at a different level, man.
Yeah.
But
you've got years of eligibility at A&M. You're good.
That's
right.
No, those boys know how to play. They're the real deal. Yeah. I think that would be the one regret. I actually did look into, and I think it was another guest that you had on some time ago. I looked into going into a military academy and playing football in the United States because I wanted to see if I could have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
And I think I forgot it was one of the Smith or some of the other ones. But what I decided was I'd rather be with my parents. I'd rather be here. I'd rather be present with my community. And couldn't have been a better decision I've ever had. Right? Mm-hmm. Could have absolutely been a better decision. And my dad was very supportive of TAS, right? So if you go back into the yearbooks, I think Kodak was a sponsor for pretty much every yearbook since my little sister to my big sister were that we were there, right? So that she definitely was a big part of the yearbook and the photography and the aspect of that, and was a big part of TAS. I mean, Kodak was on campus.
Yeah. Kodak building. Yeah.
It was a Kodak building, right? We actually had class in the Kodak building. Yeah. So the reality was he was a big part of my growing up. He came over to have popcorn for my free period at times, right? And so at times when parents didn't come watch their kids play practice, he'd come out and watch me practice softball in the old school, right? And so that was fun times and really enjoyed it. But yeah, I mean, my dad suffered with ALS when he just before he died, and it took him 6 years, a very slow process, and it was very painful, and it was very sad because his mental capacity was there, but his body just degraded around him. And one of the things I feel very blessed to do is I went to Scotland just before his disease got bad. And for my 40th birthday, 9 years ago, we went to Scotland and we did the tours. Went out with my wife. We the whiskey distillery tour, and then I went and spent a week with my dad playing golf. And some of my best experiences that I've ever had, and just learned so much from my dad, and just utmost respect as to how he handled himself, what he did. We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. He's not perfect, but just being able to be who he is, authentic, and one that is very open to everyone. And as I said before, he called everybody captain, regardless of who you are. You're the captain. Hey, captain.
I do remember that. Yeah.
And so he really wanted to warm up to you, wanted to understand you, and get to know you.
Yeah, and your mom. I always remember your mom driving around in the McCann van. You guys
That's
had
right.
that van, the Taiwan van.
So while we're talking about the van, and I think one of my sisters, said I needed to bring this up, and because you might have the same experience. I don't know, but we had drivers, right? Yeah. And we had exactly 3 drivers the whole time we were there for 12 years. So we had drivers that stayed with us a long time, and it was really funny because every single driver we had, his name was Mr. Chen. And at the end, when we got our 3rd driver and his name was Mr. Chen, I was like, Dad, they're lying to you, right? His name is not Mr. Chen. They don't think you can say his name. So just say, go with Mr. Chen, right? Yeah. And Mr. Chen, the red van, my sister talking about that. So Mr. Chen would drive the van. He is talking about extended family. He was extended family. Yeah. He was a part of the family. He would, Mr. Chen would play basketball with me, right? He would ride, push me on my bike. He would do whatever because he's a part of our family, and that's what he did, right? And it was just fun to be a part of that community. And I know that seems weird to a lot of people in the States as well, but at the same time, that's who we were, and that's what we did, right? And that's that Mr. Chen was a part of our family. We couldn't have done things we did without him. So that was fun.
No, I love that, because I know like your mom and my mom did a lot with the PTA and all that stuff. So they were close, and our parents in general were close. And I always remember my dad, because my dad was a funny guy to read too, and he's since passed as well. And he was just like your dad. There were definitely parents and people, and when I say this, I don't mean it, but like you talked earlier about the ugly American thing. That was never either one of our dads or our parents, right? Nope. It was just instilled in them, instilled in us. There was a very, and they made sure we never grew up that way. But what I'm getting at is, you went to the American Club, I went to the American Club. We saw different types of folks that were in Taipei for whatever reason playing softball. Perfect example. They were totally the ugly American types playing softball, things like that.
Yep.
My dad, would never openly say anything in public, and I think your dad was the same way. But if you got them to a room, I guess what I'm getting at is, it was always you always kind of have to be more afraid of the quietest guy in the room. And your dad wasn't quiet per se, neither was my dad, but at times they were, and those were the times I was always terrified of both of them, right? When they got super quiet. Like, your dad was great, my dad was great, talking, and then they get quiet. It was like, what did I say? What did I do? But I will say this, and I can truly and honestly tell you and your sisters both, but I do remember both my parents. My mom's probably watching right now, but my dad too, he was always complimentary of both your parents. He adored your dad too, and they were poker buddies. They would go to the Davenport's house, and they would play with the Moriartys and all those guys and the Eagles, and they'd all get together. And my dad was always like, the only guy you could trust was Don, because everybody else was lying. Don is like, he said, like, Don's the worst poker player because he was too honest. It's like he couldn't lie, couldn't bluff. So, but I just always remember, my parents. I can speak for them, and I can speak for my family. They were always very impressed with not only your parents, but your family and your two sisters as well. And I know Kim really well. I don't know Christina that well. We've definitely met, and she's watching too. But I wanted to make sure we give your parents a solid tribute.
Absolutely. No, they appreciate that. They're obviously a major pillar of the community at the time, and it really, really meant a lot. And obviously, you see that with Miss Funk passing. She meant a huge part of that to the community. And that just doesn't go away. It doesn't go away.
No, and there's things like that stick with you. I mean, here I am, 44 years old, and I'm still thinking about the way your dad handled things. And like, you're terrified when your dad got quiet. We were at your house, and there were a bunch of us there, and I just remember your dad came out of the back room, just stared at us quiet. We were like, uh-oh. But it was good. It was all good because he was always friendly. It wasn't like he was, but he was just always super nice, super friendly. Your mom the same way. And I do remember your sister brought this up, but the red van, that red Taiwan van. Your mom driving. I just remember seeing your mom driving around with that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Let's we're getting kind of close, but I can talk to you, man, forever. And this is we're not done just yet, but I just I want to be respectful of your time. But your wife and kids, are they? I'm sure your wife maybe does, but let's talk about them for a minute. There we go, another one. Sorry.
All right, there we go. Let me work on this. So again, I'm just.
You're making my job too easy, man. This is awesome.
Hey, you said you transitioned, so we talk about you remember living overseas, and you're with your family. You go on vacation with them. You're stuck with them. You got to have fun. And I got a son who's 7 years old, and I got a daughter who's 11. My son plays baseball, and we just had a baseball game today, and we had such a good time. My daughter is a dancer and an actor, and they're very, very, very bright. They get that from their mama, who is a CPA and unbelievable businesswoman as well as mom. And so we have a good time. We've been in Austin for a long time, obviously since was it 98. So really enjoyed this area here. At the same time, I would love to move away and do other things. It's just a matter of taking advantage of the opportunities given to you, and those opportunities haven't presented themselves. And at the same time, there's a great opportunity here, and I'm absolutely taking advantage of that and absorbing it at this time.
Do they quite get, especially your kids, do they understand how dad grew up?
So they don't. I mean, it's hard, right? I mean, the answer is yes, they get it. Dad speaks Chinglish, and he likes to speak Chinese with the Chinese waitresses and all that kind of stuff, right? But at the end of the day, it's hard. It's just not a hard. It's a hard thing to kind of think about, when you're growing up. And at their ages, they're not really able to process it at this point. They just want to have a good time, and they want to have candy at the end of the day, right? So it's just that aspect of it. But over time, I think that's where I've made it a critical element in my families that we're going to go travel. We're going to see the world. We're going to.
That was my next question. Have they traveled yet? Have they gone on long?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. We've traveled as much as we can with them. In fact, we just went to Fiji last year, and we had a great time at Fiji. And my wife and I have traveled with my kids. We're traveling at a little bit more. My son's at the age of 7 now that she's a little bit easier to travel with, and they're great now. So I think with COVID coming up, we really are open to traveling more with them and experiencing it. It's one of those things you don't want to travel too much with them, at least in my experience, because they don't remember it, up into this stage. We've taken them to Disneyland and those kind of things, but I'm not sure how much they actually remember that, right? So hopefully it's an experience that you can remember. And I don't want to take them to Paris or London and not remember it. And definitely going to Australia, Peter. So definitely we're definitely going to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about your wife? Is she from Texas? Or was she?
Yeah, she is. She's from Texarkana, a small town in just on the border of Louisiana, Texas, and Oklahoma. And really, we got together in Austin at a Bible study, and she went to A&M, and really had that in common. And so I really enjoyed her, and she's my better half for sure. I outkicked my coverage for on this one.
I can relate to that. I'm with you, man. I totally get that. One of the last serious questions I want to ask you. You talked about we alluded to this a little while ago. Lifelong learner. Yeah, I didn't know if there was another hat transition or not. But
no, what do you mean? Serious.
Yeah. What do you mean by that? So let's talk about being a lifelong learner.
Let's talk about it. So part of that is kind of in my DNA, and I wasn't a very good learner in the early stages of education, but it's one of those things it's about perseverance. You've got to persevere. You've got to just stay after it. And because I probably wasn't that great of a student, it took the will. I got great teachers like Miss Metzger, Miss Waterman, and a bunch of others that said, "Hey, you just got to persevere. You got to make it through. You got to get to the next level." And then, okay, well, I'm here. I got to the next level. I graduated from college. I'm going to go get my master's. Okay, well, I got my master's. Now, what do you want to do now? Well, I'm in high tech, but I don't know anything about high tech. What should I do? Well, you got to learn about high tech, right? So what do you do about high tech? So there are so many things to learn from the smart people around you that, I work for Cisco, and I'm blessed to be able to work with people that are way smarter than me. And I learn on a daily basis, where are we going? What are we doing? How is the technology changing? And to try to anticipate those technology changes, because some of those you're going to want to jump on, some of those you want to skip. And so, really educating yourself on that and how do you do it is a part of my career. It's a part of what I do. And definitely I'm curious in nature. So I'd love to understand things, and probably drives people nuts. But, I'm not an engineer. I don't tend to be an engineer, but at the same time, I'll definitely go deep with people to understand kind of where they're going with that, understand how they're doing it, so that I can educate myself.
I love it. No, as someone who was in the teaching profession for years, man, I wish I could have had you come speak to half my classes. That I love those words. Yeah, you just, why not? Why not try? Live a little and go for it.
Absolutely.
Be curious. There's no harm, no foul.
Not at all. So, and I'll tell you one thing. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say everybody learns differently too. I was like you, man. I was not the greatest student growing up, but now there's things that I'm truly passionate about and want to learn, and that's I think that that you kind of follow your path and go that way and see what happens. I love that. That's the message you said, been sending, I guess, since even back in the day. Because look at me. I mean, like I said, idle, right? So I mean, it's but no, it's well, it's yeah. I mean, you follow your passions, and you're never too young or old to learn something new, and I love that. That's kind of the spirit you're showcasing right now, and I love that. So it's good to hear. It's good. It's refreshing. So, but what were you going to say?
I was going to say one of the tools that I use is audible.com. It gives an opportunity to listen to books on tape. And, it's a great, I travel a lot. So I'm either in a car traveling to Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, or I'm going on the plane and able to learn through others in a very quick manner, or listening to Wall Street Journal, or just, in a way that is a non-traditional learning method, right? Which is, what we do. I know that, I'm a big screen time guy with my kids, and trying to figure out how do you limit your screen time. Well, my dad read the newspaper every day, and he spent an hour doing that. Well, we do that on our iPhone. How do we do that? What do we do? How do we get that information? So this non-traditional learning is very important to me, and how do you impart that curiosity? How do kids do that? We have to look at, you're a teacher, you're an educator. So how do we educate the next generation? What is going to trip their trigger? Is it, non-traditional learning methods? How do we get them to a point where they're how did that light click in my head saying, you know what, this is important for me to take for my next position, my next job, my next step, right? When does that light click off, and how can we click that light on earlier? Even though they're just going through the motions and taking tests and, filling out Scantrons, and, they don't do that anymore, but, filling out, multiple choice questions, which they're playing a game, right? They're not learning. So, trying to change that process. And I think it's amplified now with COVID, where people are doing remote learning. And, I don't know about you, but in the state of Texas, we're just we're not staffed. We don't have the right people to educate our kids remotely. So it's very, parents puts a lot of burden on the parents to step in and help out and really kind of make sure that education is going on.
Yeah, it's a tough time. I mean, I've been out of the game for about a year now, but I can't imagine. It's a tough time for parents. Totally. I understand that. It's a tough time for teachers too, because this isn't what they bargained for either. They're learning how to teach in a whole new setting as well. So it's wild times. And I mean, there's no right or wrong right now. Like I said, it's a tough spot to be in on both sides. So that said, I mean, yeah, kids learn differently either way. So, but I was going to ask you about that. You beat me to it, but I was going to ask you if your kids are back in school yet, or if are they
doing remote. They're doing remote, and I'll tell you how we every kid is different. We've put our both kids in pods. So they're in pod systems where my son is going to a different family every weekday. And my daughter is actually going to a offsite location with another 10 students. And they'll be doing that for the next year, but staying in the public school system, just not going to the on-site. Yeah. So I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. It's just a different way of doing it. And everybody's got to do their different thing. And that's what we've chosen to do on our side.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. Like I said, I just happened to get out of education right before all this hit. So I don't know how I would handle it either. So I applaud all you guys, whatever side you're on right now. It's just one of those tricky situations. So, we're kind of winding down, but I wanted to talk about other passions. Yeah. I know you a little bit, but I wanted to make sure those that are watching understand this. But what other passions do you have? You talked about golf earlier, but what else is out there? Yeah, so
I play golf a little bit, and I enjoy it. I'm not very good, but I enjoy it. Home automation, because I'm live in the high tech world, is really tripped my trigger, and I really enjoy that. So just making sure that how can you at home leverage automation of residential appliances, residential items to work for your benefit, and leveraging AI in a way that can help you. So just different things that we can do to do that. And I think some people are scared of it. I've definitely embraced it and tried to figure out ways. But one thing I've learned is that you'll have to fail in this space. You 100% have to fail in the space to succeed. So because you're going to make wrong decisions, you're going to make wrong investments, but at the same time, it's a journey you're going through, and if you stay true to it, you'll definitely get through it. But the home automation has been fun for me. That's a passion of mine that I do, and just then we support Kaneohe Kids Across America. So we support inner city kids all around the country that are in a downward spiral. That we're hoping to pull them out of that downward spiral in some way to uplift them, and sending them to summer camp. Summer camp was a big part of my life, and so I'm hoping that could be a big part of someone else's life as well.
It's amazing, man. I love it. Yeah. And I liked how you talked about, don't be afraid to fail or fail. You learn so much by failing. Totally.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And that's just in life. I don't even think it's just one thing or, another, but that's in life. I think I've definitely learned more through my failures, right? And than I have through my successes. And I just think that's kind of a normal way, to learn too. Sometimes you got to get knocked down to find your way. And I think that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So,
no, absolutely. I do think it. And people are afraid of failure, and you got to embrace it. You got to say, hey, listen, I'm going to push myself to the point where I fail. And if I don't fail, then I haven't pushed myself. Yeah.
No, I agree with that 100%. Well, listen, we have come to the last 3 questions. I love this part of the show because we got through all the hard stuff, all the fun stuff, all the wardrobe changes. Man, that cracked me up. By the way,
I got one more wardrobe, but we'll leave that to the very end. And
okay.
This one's for Debbie Krieger, and I'm not gonna change. I won't ruin it until we get there. But we'll keep it to the end.
Good. All right. Well, let's get right to it then. What is something? I mean, obviously, like I said, I know your background and things like that. But what is something most people don't know about you? Give me something that maybe people don't know.
Well, okay. So there's quite a few things, right? But I will say
that's okay.
Most people don't know my middle name.
I don't.
And I will tell you that Mr. Krieger knew my middle name, and he used it all the time. And my middle name is Dunbar. And he goes, "Hey, Dunbar, what are you doing? Come here, Dunbar." And so Mr. Krieger was all over me. I got to tell you, he was, and I love that guy to this day. I mean, East Coast, he's just all over. And he was my T-ball coach. And with Mr. Hansen, but Mr. Krieger was unbelievable father and really great guy. Just really.
Well, we share a connection with him because when I was in 9th grade, and I like I told you, I used to come with my dad. We come and my mom, and we come on the Sundays and watch the TAS team play in those softball leagues. And I was kind of an up and coming guy. I knew that I'd play eventually. I wasn't at that level yet, but Krieger, they needed a fill-in replacement on the Presidents. Remember the Presidents team?
Yes, of course.
And, yeah. And Krieger pulled me out of the stands one day and said, "We need a replacement. You in?" Like I never talked to the men in my life. I was completely shaking.
But see, Krieger's one of these guys. He doesn't care. He knows. By the way, he knows you're bigger than him, right?
Oh yeah, so, I was in 8th grade. Yeah, he was a tiny guy.
In 8th grade, you were right. So he's just that kind of guy, right? And I mean, just. But anyway, that most people don't know my middle name, and it's Dunbar.
Awesome.
And
Dunbar.
he loved to call me Dunbar. Every time
That's
we say,
awesome.
"Hey, Dunbar, what's up?"
That's awesome. No, I love that. Well, let's talk about this then. If you can have an hour just sitting on a park bench chatting with anybody about anything, doesn't really matter. Don't have to tell us about what you chat about, but if you could sit down and talk to anybody, who would it be?
I know you've asked this to a bunch of your interview panelists in the past, and I've listened to their responses, and I've thought about this. There's not a one person that I know that I'd want to go back to. It's kind of goes back to the ethos of what I'd go for is stay in the moment, embrace the moment, and take advantage of the opportunities given to you, which means you don't go backwards. There's no regrets. I'd love obviously going back to talk to people that are, historical figures, just to understand kind of maybe their mindset on what they would do. But for me, it's absolutely be in the moment, talk to people that you have the opportunity to be around. And when you force things, I think that to me is not natural in a lot of situations. And sometimes that, if you got a vision, you got a passion, those things you will try and force it. But at the same time, I think that if you take advantage of those opportunities that you are given, opportunities will find you, and I think you'll have that great experience.
I love that answer, and I appreciate the honesty. You already answered the next one, and that's having to do with where you'd want to travel right now. You kind of beat us to the punch, but luckily, Mr. Mark Soderoff just
I saw that.
Yeah, he's he was in the. I don't know if you watched his episode.
I did.
Very interesting guy. Yeah, very very deep conversation. Loved my conversation with him. It was great. But yeah, this kind of replaces my last question. Then, if if you could or had to recommend the Marines to kids leaving high school right now, especially in today's world, would you?
I would. Not everybody is ready to go to college. Not everybody's ready wanting to go to college. And I think that going into the Marine Corps or going into any military service is definitely something that you will grow up in. You'll learn a lot. You'll meet great friends with. The reality is that I think it's a lifelong lesson. I encourage a lot of people to go do that. Right after college or after high school. I do recommend them finishing high school before they go, and that is an option. But at the same time, definitely think it's a great opportunity. They can get educated and go to college while they're in the military service, and we go into officer ranks. So there's a lot of different opportunities that are open up to them. Where I will tell you that opportunities get closed if you take a different path. And you don't potentially go down those paths. So I definitely recommend it. And thanks, Mark, for that question. I think that's good.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Well, this is it, man. We made it. So I'm going to save it because I know Debbie, I hope you're watching.
All right. Well, she's probably going to watch the rewind, but Debbie, she doesn't think that I can fit into my old TS.
Mine's upstairs.
But I want to make sure that it goes on record, right? That I can not only, it not only fits, right? It's in great quality shape. The plastic buttons are still working, right? They're not, yellowed, and everything is squared away. I got plenty of space. Nothing, it's not bulging at all. Let me tell you that. All right.
No. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Mine's upstairs. I put mine on a couple weeks ago. That's so funny. I had no idea. Yeah.
Good.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Well, I truly can't thank you enough. Before we go, Mark just wrote you back too. I don't know if you saw that, but he
love it.
But listen, back in the day, growing up, I started this interview by saying you were definitely one of my idols growing up. You were such even back then, such a strength of positivity. I don't know if you've been following all these words that have been coming in, but even Paul Lowe, wrote earlier. I'm going to pull it back up real quick, but I don't know if this is my point, man. For so many of us, you were that guy, whether you realize it or not. Probably not at the time, and probably not now.
No,
but you were that guy, and so many of us wanted to be Scott McCann. You've always been a strength of positivity, and your family. Please say hi to your sisters for me. Obviously,
Absolutely.
Your wife and your kids. But thank you so much for doing this, man. This has been amazing. I don't know how to say it. The fact that you brought all those hats and wardrobe, that made me laugh. So I appreciate that. This is
hey Ben, I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for having me on. I obviously listen to your episodes religiously. I think it's great. I learn a lot through them.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate the different perspectives, the different ideas that they have, and I think it's so important even now in this day and age in the United States and worldwide, regardless, to be open to different perspectives and point of views. Look at my sister. She's
that's exactly
thrown out.
She's exactly right. Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, and I just want to encourage you for what you're doing, because I think it's you tell a story that is a lot of people have experienced that might feel like they're in silos, right? And one that they have impacted a lot of different people, and they can continue to impact a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. So thanks for doing it.
No, I appreciate that. And I've said this over and over, but this was something that just started off as kind of a COVID thing to get me through COVID, but it's deep, it's a lot deeper than that. And the one thing I'm super proud of with this show more than anything is that it's allowed me to understand and other people to come forward and like I said, I thought I was the only one that struggled with these acclimation things. I thought I was the only one that, had a hard time acclimating back to my home country and being American. I didn't know what it was like to be American, right? It took a while. But this show has been so therapeutic to me personally. And it's because of the people being willing to kind of drop their guard and just being so transparent. And this is great. I appreciate your words. That's very kind, but it's the people that are coming on and sharing their experiences. And it's my way of giving back. We talked about this. Our parents, without them, none of this would even be happening. But it's my way of giving back and allowing people to see that grew up, especially like we did. Yes, we were different, but there is that close bond that we'll always have. And there are people going through the same things or have gone through the same things. We'll always be connected, and I love that. It's that chosen family, man. I'm smiling. I'll be smiling the rest of tonight just over your words. And even your sister, choose family, live history. Definitely wear many hats, but I can't thank you enough for doing this. And just stick around. I'm going to end the broadcast now, but stick around and you and I'll keep chatting for just a minute.
Sounds good.
But those of you that are watching, thank you so much. This has been episode 23 of BenThere. If you watched on YouTube, please, on the BenThere channel, please make sure you subscribe. The rest of you, until next time, we'll see you probably, I think, next Sunday. I think we do have another show next Sunday. But thank you, Scott McCann, my idol growing up. Definitely, whether he realizes or not, or is, whatever, but he was. So thank you, Scott, so much for doing this. Until next time, everybody, we will talk to you later.